Welcome back, everyone. It had to happen. We have to do a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A52 and the Samsung Galaxy S10. Now, the S10 was the flagship from a couple years ago, still currently one of my favorite phones ever. It's so timeless. I love it so much I can marry it. The A52, on the other hand, is Samsung's budget offering. I love these phones a lot, the A series. You can pick up either one of these in the description below. You can help support the channel at the same time if you buy them from there. Now, side by side, you can definitely see that the Galaxy S10 is the smaller phone. I keep this in mind. This is a flagship of 2019. This is a budget phone of this year. Times have changed. We're definitely getting better budget phones year after year. Now on the front of the S10, we do have that 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED display. Beautiful panel, as I've said for years. It's probably still one of the best panels ever made. A hole punch display at the top right, curved display. The only disadvantage this phone has, in my opinion, is the lack of 120Hz or 90Hz refresh rate. That is the only thing. But in 2019, it wasn't super popular. We had the 7 Pro and some other phones too. But I really do like the Samsung Galaxy S10 display. It's beautiful. Now, the Galaxy A51 has a bigger 6.5-inch panel on it, so it's definitely bigger. It's 1080p, so low resolution, but it does have that 90Hz refresh rate, which again, that in and of itself is a massive advantage for this type of device. That seeing that 90Hz on a budget phone is crazy because Apple still hasn't implemented it on any of their iPhones. So that is definitely one of my favorite things about this device. I still think the Galaxy S10 though has a better looking panel. That's just me. You may think otherwise, but that's kind of what I'm thinking as of this point. So in terms of that, I still think the S10 has a better panel. In terms of thickness and thickness, the A51 is definitely the thicker phone. Headphone jack and USB Type-C ports on the bottom of both of these. On the back, glass back on the Galaxy S10, plastic back on the A52, triple camera setup on the S10, quadruple camera setup on the A52, we'll get into that in a second. Reverse wireless charging with wireless charging on the S10, wireless charging on the A52. And that is pretty much the main differences. Both have IP certification, which is great, and that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside. Now, one of the bigger differences I think between these two devices, as I always mention time after time, would probably be the software, but this time they're both running One UI 3 for the most part. I think this is on One UI 3 or something like that. They're both running, very good software. None of them feels outdated. They're both probably going to be ending off around the same time, if I'm being honest. Samsung did push out an extra year of software update for the S10, which is beautiful. I love seeing that. And we're getting an additional year of security updates as well, which is another massive thing. So we're probably going to be ending off around the same time. Based on what I think Samsung's doing with their past A series of devices, this one is probably getting like a year less than their flagship of that same year. So I think it's probably going to end off somewhere around an S10 to around an S20, somewhere along those lines. So keep it as you will, but I think the A52 still is a really good device in terms of software. I'm not a huge fan of either one of these softwares or One UI, but since they share that similarity, it's totally okay. Now, a massive, massive thing the Galaxy A52 has going for it that the S10 probably still has going for it too is the battery life. The A52 has a bigger sized battery on this device by quite a bit than the S10. Now that's a huge advantage because with the S10, it was already like pretty decent battery life and you had reverse wireless charging, but the A52 does win in that specific battery category. You're going to be getting better, longer battery life from something like a Galaxy A52 than on something like the Galaxy S10. The S10 is still going to be great, but the A52 is definitely going to beat it. So those are probably one of the bigger differences when it comes down to the software and battery. But I think other than that, they're both very similar in so many different ways. So in terms of that, that covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both of these devices. The Samsung Galaxy S10 had that Qualcomm Snapdragon A55 chipset with 8 gigs of RAM, I think on the base model, and then I think it only stayed at 8 gigs of RAM. With the A52 has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G chipset with 4 gigabytes of RAM on the base model, then it goes up to 8 gigs of RAM on the top tier models. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, now that we're back, let me go and clear all the apps in the background. Should only take me a second. Close all the S10 is already cleared out. Let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And I still actually think the S10 was faster there. Hopping out of this one, let's do Play Store, 3, 2, 1. And we did get a little bit of a pop-up on the S10. I think this one still would have been faster. Scrolling through, you guys can see that I think the S10 is still the faster one here, at least smoother-wise. I think the A52 was still actually pretty fast, but possibly the S10 was faster there. Hopping out of this one, as always, we have these third-party apps we can get into. Let's go ahead and do something like Temple Run 2, 3, 2, and I don't know where that one is. Right here, 3, 2, 1. And you can see the S10 does seem to be faster here, the A52 a little bit behind. I saw this yesterday too with another device too between the A52, but it did keep up. So as you can see, the A52 definitely didn't keep up with the S10. Getting into some gameplay. Let's see what's going on here. And they're probably going to look roughly around the same. I really don't think there's going to be that big of a difference. They both kind of glitched out there a little bit, but I think in terms of the gameplay here, they're both pretty accurate. Let's get into Fruit Ninja. 3, 2, 1. And that is very weird. The S10 did that. I don't know why the S10 did that. You can see that, I guess we're on two different panels of the game, but it's very weird the S10 glitched like that. With the A52 was actually a little bit more clear, to be honest. Getting out of this specific device, let's get into the next one, which is, BOFA. 3, 2, 1. And you can see, I think the S10 was faster to get into this. Well, it was an update panel. What's going on with this comparison? Dropbox. 3, 2, 1. I think the A52 actually was slightly faster. Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. And the A52 definitely was faster there. Hopping out of this one, let's go ahead and do Facebook. 3, 2, 1. And Samsung Galaxy S10 definitely was the faster one there. Snake versus Blocks. 3, 2, 1. And you can see the Galaxy S10 actually was faster there. Getting into some gameplay, let's see if there's a difference. And I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference, to be honest. But typically, we tend to see bigger differences at this point. I think they're both very similar, though. Like, I don't even know which one is the faster one. Like, I don't think there is one. Thank you. 3, 2, 1. And you can see the S10 actually was faster here. Gameplay-wise, kind of scrolling through, they both look around the same. There's not really that big of a difference with the graphics here. They're both fairly smooth. Hopping out of this one, let's, I guess, end it off with Twitter. 3, 2, 1. And the S10, I think, was faster there too. So I genuinely don't know which one is the faster one here. I think they're both, honestly, roughly around the same. Quite possibly, I don't know. I want to say the S10 is the faster one, but there were some times where the A52 was faster too. So I don't think, as you can see, there was an example of the RAM being much better on the Galaxy S10. I think, to be honest, the overall better performing phone is the Galaxy S10. It has more RAM, it's doing a better job with RAM management, and I think it was a little bit faster, but I think if you have to get one, either one of these is pretty decent. But I think the Galaxy S10 is probably the better device when it comes down to being an overall more well-rounded device at the end of the day. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up there. Let's go and hit on the cameras. Now on the back, like I mentioned, the Galaxy S10 has that triple camera setup, wide, telephoto, and ultra-wide sensor. The Galaxy A52 has a wide, ultra-wide, macro, and depth lens on it. Now, it's definitely no secret. I think the Galaxy S10's camera was probably the best one of 2020 or 2019, even in 2022. This is a very solid camera. You have that ultra-wide sensor, which is perfect. You have the telephoto lens, which is great. And you have 4K 60 on the back and 4K 60 on the front. This is a very solid camera for sure. This is, I think, still, when I think of, couple-year-old phones, like 3-year-old phones or 2-year-old phones, this is the device I think of for being a timeless camera. This is perfect in my opinion. It's up there with like even an S20. Really, the main difference between this and an S20 is really 8K. Other than that, this camera quality is perfect. I think it is better than the Galaxy A52. But again, it's pretty hard to beat this camera. It was a huge jump from something like a Galaxy S9 to this one. So I have a lot of respect for this camera, and I think for a lot of people, including me, it's like one of those perfect cameras for sure. Now on something like the Galaxy A52, I think this is probably an even more solid camera than a lot of budget phones, especially the previous A series of devices, at least in like the A50 lineup. This is a very solid camera, 4K 30 on the back, 4K 30 on the front as well, no 8K, no 4K 60. I think it's okay. I would have loved to seen 4K 60 on the back. We'll probably get that in the A53, but this is a very solid camera. You have that ultra-wide lens, which looked kind of funny there, but I think this camera is good for a budget phone. I don't think it's comparable to something like a Galaxy S10. I think the S10 has the better camera for sure, but for this device, for having the capability, for being a budget tier phone, and for having all these settings within the camera, like this camera actually has quite a bit of settings within its settings app. I think that's actually pretty cool, and I think the A52 is good, but I think the Galaxy S10 is a much better camera for sure. So to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you go and buy a Galaxy A52 or should you buy a Samsung Galaxy S10? Well, this is what I'll tell you. I think hands down you should buy a Samsung Galaxy S10. This is a very solid phone. I think it is actually cheaper in some places than an A52, at least a brand new A52. This is a solid phone. This is still a flagship in my opinion. Micro SD card slots on both phones, but this one has reverse wireless charging, a better looking display. It just looks timeless. How can a phone look any better than this? Even with the S21, they went down. This is a premium phone, such a huge lifespan in front of it. I wish this thing had like some sort of like custom ROMs you could throw onto it or something like that. But this is a very solid phone, beautiful display, great cameras, performance as you guys saw was I think better overall than the A52. You headphone jack, USB-C port, all that stuff. This is a beautiful phone for sure. But I think at the same breath, the A52 is a very solid phone as well. This is a very good phone for a budget-tier device. I don't think I would go from an S10 to an A52, but I would go from an A52 to a Galaxy S10. I feel like this phone is worth it in my opinion. But this device is still pretty good. You know, you have a beautiful display, 90 hertz refresh rate. You don't really have that on the S10. You have that better display, but the 90 hertz refresh rate is here. You're getting decent performance for it's not even that far off from something like an S10 to be honest, let's be real. USB-C, headphone jack, and micro SD card slot, and IP certification. Pretty much the same things as the Galaxy S10. You know, plastic back, whether you like it or not, at least, you know, it's frosted, so I think that has an alternate, that's kind of cool. Definitely when I think of both of these, the Galaxy S10 to me is the more, you know, premium phone for sure. This is when I think of a flagship, this is a device that I think of. I don't really think of a, you know, A52. I think of the Galaxy S10 for sure. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers it up here. Like I mentioned before, you can get them both links down below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. That'd be great. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the video, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.